Well, this past weekend, we saw the last offering that the UFC is giving us for this year. There will be no more cards until January 14th, I believe, 2023. The last fight night card was topped by middleweights. I could already spit on this card.
That was a shitty one.
Cannonier versus Strickland. It was a fight. It happened. This was contested under the unified rules.
They definitely were wearing gloves and in the cage.
There was this was a competition of sorts. Jared Cannonier gets it done against Sean Strickland by 5-round, and let me check. This was a split decision. I couldn't remember if it was unanimous or split. In a very forgettable fight. Like, this is kind of like it wasn't a bad fight, but it was.
Oh, wow.
I was gonna call it a wet fart, like to end the year. It certainly wasn't a bad fight. I was actually kind of intrigued at how close it was, and I think most of the conversation going forward after we left this fight is in reference to the judging, because the previous weekend the previous few weekends we had some questionable scores. We had that draw in the light heavyweight title fight, the Paddy Pimblett decision, and now we're looking at this fight, and there's a lot of conflict, not a ton of conflict. I don't know who's that passionate about the results of a fucking Sean Strickland versus Jared Cannonier fight, but a lot of people saying that was Strickland's fight. Or a lot of people saying, like, how could it have been a split decision? A lot of people thinking that it should have been like 50-45 Jared Cannonier. I think it was just an unscorable mess. Like, once in a while we get those fights that are just too close to call sometimes, and I think that there's a lot of people who are detractors about the whole idea of scoring rounds 10-10, but on Tapology I gave, I think, 3 rounds. Or no, I gave 2 rounds at 10-10 because there was no action. There wasn't really enough notable happening in either of those rounds to make me confidently give it to either guy. And it's easy for me to deal out a 10-10 with, by the way, Brandon and I, my co-host, welcome back. I just realized, I hadn't even
like and subscribe.
I hadn't even
podcast. Merry Christmas.
I hadn't even done introductions or anything like that. But I gave like 2 of those rounds a 10-10. I think I gave the first round a 10-10,
That's
possibly
fair.
the third round. The third round was probably just like, I'm distracted, not necessarily watching it with a judging eye. I'm scoring to get my points on Tapology. I just thought that the rounds, and I actually had the rounds that I didn't give it 10-10 to, I scored for Strickland. I think 2 of the rounds I thought were definitively Strickland's. 2 of the rounds that I gave a 10-10 to were Cannonier. My point is, I think I scored it for Sean Strickland. I'm not surprised by either outcome. I think it was a really close fight.
Same.
Literally,
I was
any
only
scorecard
surprised that
works
there
for
was
me.
the 49-46 for each guy one way. Right. I was like, what? That's weird. How did both guys get that in the split? Like, that's kind of weird, but whatever.
Right, because I think one judge had it like 4-1 for Cannonier. The other one was the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So,
right.
I mean, I think you can make a good argument for either case, because I think in most instances in this fight, Sean Strickland was kind of controlling where the fight happened. He was controlling the pace of the fight, and there just wasn't a lot of damage to score, which is
he was
main
just
scoring
side tapping him
criteria.
with like I've never seen it. He jabs and then hits him with the side of his hand, like like that's that's like my 4-year-old son does that when he gets mad. Like, he hits you with the side of his hand, and it's like, what was that?
Yeah, Sean Strickland's boxing is interesting, man. I think he makes he makes it work for sure, and I think there's something about the pressure that he puts on that is a bit stifling for certain guys, and I think that part of that is a product of the division that he's in. And especially this past weekend, the guy who's standing across from him, Jared Cannonier, we've been critical of him before for just not flipping the switch, not really turning it on, kind of coasting.
And it's there. It's like, just do it.
Yes.
Just do it. He wants to. He can. That was really frustrating me, because I'm like, and it's those breaks. And we saw that against Adesanya, where, like, okay, he's backed up against a fence, or he has Strickland, like, he pushes him with the shoulder and throws a couple of violent ass punches, and like just 2 more of those, dude, and like, you're on the right track. Just keep that going, and then maybe chain, like, So I think we can wait because like the co-main kind of was like the exact like how you want to do that, where you put things together in a chain
Mhm.
and just keep it going, and then it works. Like somehow it just works. And he just stopped for whatever reason. He just, it seems like yes, yes, yes. Oh, why are you stopping that? Like, why are you stopping what
Mhm.
you're doing? So it was very frustrating.
Yeah, it's like where did the momentum go? And it kind
Yeah,
of makes me wonder if he's always very weary of his gas tank and is trying to conserve his energy.
maybe I think that's it. He
Possibly.
listens to his corner though.
Mhm.
um he does a really good job of listening to what they said, and he was doing what they said. He's coachable, which is obvious. It's an obvious thing with him. I think he's a good example of someone who's willing to take coaching. And because we can say all we want about this is shitty, what he just beat a top 10 guy in his division in the
Yes.
UFC.
Yeah.
He just took Israel Adesanya to 5 rounds.
Yes.
So like, I'm here talking shit, or we're here talking shit, but I mean, fuck, dude. I don't even know, like, like if I could even come anywhere close to that in my line of work. You know what I'm saying? So he's doing pretty good. And I think it's just a testament to he's super athletic. He has a great physique. He works super hard and he takes coaching, and he seems like a good guy, and it can get you far. And so
It
good for
certainly can.
him. But it's just so frustrating because I think it's just it's just like the look of him. Like just looking at him, he just looks like he could kill. He looks like a built ass mean motherfucker that can just beat the shit out of anybody, you know. And in spurts he does it, and it's like, man, you can just rip Strickland's head off, dude. But I think you hit the nail right on the head, and that's one thing that I haven't heard, and maybe I'm just not listening well enough, is is he in his own head about gassing out?
Mhm.
And maybe that's something deep down, where maybe he's done it in training or in other fights where he's pushed that pace and he's felt gassed and knew that he just can't do it, and he's like feeling close, and it's just in the back of his mind. So
Well, to go back and kind of address, you mentioned like, well, we're being really critical of him. He just challenged for a title. He went
yeah.
5 rounds with Israel Adesanya. I think what it is like we're recognizing that his ceiling is low.
Ooh,
He's
yes,
been there.
good point, man.
He
Damn,
challenged for the
we're
title
on
and he
top
never
of this.
turned it on at any point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's 38 years,
Yeah.
9 months. So he's going to be 39 pretty soon. And I feel like that thing that's bothering us that we're critical about his game planning, it's up in the air as if whether it's a conditioning issue or an IQ issue, not recognizing when he should pull the trigger in a fight, not recognizing when he has someone hurt. And normally when the guy gets to 38, 39, 40, if he's going to be fighting into those years,
Mm-hmm.
we expect for that veteranship to really be kicking in, for him to be using his experience and his wisdom in the cage to kind of like,
Yeah.
even out, where he might
Right.
be falling short in other areas. But the thing is, he's not falling short in other areas. He's still a physical powerhouse. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
he's
dude,
insane.
if you could
Yeah.
just meld both parts of the game, I think he could be something
Yeah.
special. But right now, it just turned out to be a bit of a nothing burger of a middleweight fight,
Right.
which is it's crazy because both of them are ranked in. I don't have the rankings in front of me right now, but I know they're both top 10. I think one of them is top 5, that being Sean Strickland, possibly. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
wish this fight had more stakes, but we're in a situation right now where we know that middleweight title is tied up. After Jared Cannonier got the decision in the cage, he called for the title shot, and it's like, come on, Jared, you're not going to get this title shot right now.
But I mean, at the same time, I mean,
Who else are you supposed to call it? That's
look at
true.
Jamal Hill. Like, look at Jamal Hill. I mean,
True.
look at these guys. Like,
Yeah,
if you don't say closed mouths don't get fed, dude. You know
that's
what I
a good point.
mean? And that's one thing we're always critical about, is like, you have your time.
Hmm.
Fucking John Anik or Rogan or Jay, or these guys have the fucking mic in front of you. Just fucking say it. Who cares? Like, they're just gonna tell you no, and you'll look like a pussy if you don't. So who cares?
And we know that that's one thing MMA fighters never, ever want, is to look like a
Yeah.
pussy. That's for damn
Right.
sure.
Right. Not in the eyes of guys like us. That's for sure too. You know what I
and
mean?
and to be fair to Oh, I just hear the little notification that my battery's low. And to be fair to Robert Whitaker, also, Robert Whitaker, Jared Cannonier, he did recently comment that since that fight fell apart with Paulo Costa and Robert Whitaker, that he said he's ready and willing to go to Perth on relatively short notice and see if he can get in there and handle that business with Robert Whitaker again. So, big ups to him. No one else is going to put him in that position to capitalize on that. So yeah, you make a great point about like being ready. Like look at Jamal Hill, like you said. So there's one position where he can find himself in a quick turnaround fight in the beginning of 2023. Let's see. Do we have anything else to say about this main event? No, I'll answer the question for both of us, and we can move on to the co-main event, which should have been the main event, which I was griping about that night of like, dude, why couldn't this be 5 rounds instead of the main event? Instead, we were robbed of 2 rounds of a great lightweight fight between Arman Tsarukyan and Damir Ismagulov. It goes the distance. I don't remember when we made our picks. We both picked Arman, right?
I did. I think so. I think you did also.
Okay. I think Mike picked Damir on Tapology, so I was getting confused. Come on, dude. You're not in the club.
Never. No. No.
You look,
man. Huh?
No. Go on.
What happened? Oh no, I was just like, I just had to agree. Like, I don't know. I'm like checking myself. I'm looking at myself and then like, don't get too ball washy with this here, dude. Like, check yourself, dude. Like, calm down. Yeah, the guy's amazing. I have no, I can't. I mean, I've said it before a million. I think there was like a streak of these shows that we did where I pretty much like crowbarred his name into every fucking conversation. I almost crowbar in every conversation you and I have, whether it's on here or in the DM or like somehow like that's just like Arman Tsarukyan, man. You should see that. And it's like, dude, we're talking about like something else, and I'm just like crowbarred in. It's amazing, and he made Ismagulov look very pedestrian, and he's not a pedestrian fighter, dude. And he did it in a way that like. Because Arman's his striking is very good, but he didn't have to, and the way he just kept wrestling. And then when Damir had him, he had him full mounted for like a quick second, and then he just goes, "No, you're not doing that." And he just like turned him over and like put his fucking face down. Arman put his face down on the fucking mat and was like, "You're not going to do that tonight." And just like the fucking when he makes a decision to do something, it just fucking happens, and you can see it in your head, or you can see it on him when it's the exact opposite of Jared Cannonier is. He has it in his head. He knows what he needs to do, and he just does it. And he had gas tank issues, I think, with Gamrot and in other fights he's had. That's the rub. You don't see it, but I think that's what people, when they try to find a chink in his armor, they try to say there's the gas tank issue. But it's not so much that he's not conditioned. He just goes all fucking out, and he doesn't stop. He doesn't know when to pace himself. So it's just really impressive.
Yeah, the wrestling attack is especially relentless. Almost, and like how you were saying, like you want to try to not ball wash him too much because like. But
so I was looking myself in the camera like, Brandon, like that fucking meme where the guy's pointing in the mirror like, who's not gonna fucking ball wash Arman Tsarukyan tonight? You're not gonna ball wash him.
But to try and be kind of critical of him a little bit, I would say that his persistence in the wrestling area is almost to a fault. Like there's a few instances where it's like, okay, you didn't get this takedown, and I understand you are a very good chain wrestler, you have elite wrestling, but you could probably let this one go,
Yeah.
And that's about as critical as I can get, because I did think that when he was deciding to try and strike with Damir Ismagulov, he was having a lot of success there too. It's just he wasn't using it for that. He wasn't trying to have a stand-up match. He's just using his striking to open up to make openings in the wrestling, or to set up his shots, basically. Which is crazy to see though, because normally when we see that, it's feints, it's jabs, it's nothing fancy. But Arman Tsarukyan, like his kickboxing is so good. Like he will blast you with a 1-2 and then do like a switch, like leg kick to the body, and then like blast a head kick, and then all of that to go into a double leg. And it's like
he got a couple that were close to the neck. They were getting close.
And
Yeah.
I just think to see a guy who can have that level of kickboxing, like really, really good kickboxing. And I think a lot of people are even sleeping on it. But to see a guy
Yeah.
with kickboxing that good and to be able to just switch in a split second and seamlessly transition to like elite DAG level wrestling is scary.
Yeah.
It's super special, man.
Yeah, that was the thing. And I think maybe he was too game plan centric in that, where he was like, because Demir is one of the best boxers, and it's insane, one of the better like pure boxers in that division.
Really underrated.
He's
Yeah.
more of a jabber, piece you up, not so much a power guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, shit, he was on a crazy winning streak. His last fight was fucking art. So it's like and he didn't look anything like he did in his last fight. So it's like, and what, like and then he had that, not to the level like the Bryce Mitchell eyes, but he had those eyes when he was getting wrestle fucked.
Yes.
When he had those like, God damn, what in the fuck. And then he had those eyes in the corner too, when he's just looking across and his eyes just got wide. And there's a few shots I can remember distinctly where he was just like, what in the fuck is this? Like, what is this that I'm like? So I more so look at that than because I know I'm not going to be able to, like you said, you can judge a fight or you can do certain things with it. For me, I'm kind of watching it. I'm like, okay, I can data chunk, like this is what it looks like. I'm putting this in my head, but I'm also watching, okay, who's the dude getting his ass whipped?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, does he look like he can turn this around, or how does he look? And then it's almost like in a football game when you're watching it and then the other team's getting run on, they're getting run on, and then they're just not stopping the run. But the game's kind of close and it doesn't look like a crazy blowout, but you can just see that they can't stop the run. It's going to get bad for them. And it was just, that's what I was watching. Like, God damn, dude, this guy is nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. He's no walk in the park for anybody in that division. Probably one of the quietest, like, elite fighters also in that division. I think Arman ended up breaking.
He would beat, I think Demir could beat Chandler. I think Demir could beat, I would love to see Demir fight Gaethje. I think Gaethje would have some real problems with them.
Yeah.
I honestly believe that. I think like in that ilk of guys, Poirier would probably be a rough kind of a diffuser for Demir's skill set.
Yeah, because Demir is very content to box with you. Like, he's not, he's really good, but how should I say this? To most people, like, it's not the exciting performance that is going to stick in your mind for a long time. Like you mentioned, he's a real rudimentary guy. It's all about the fundamentals. He'll stick you with a jab all night if that's what's going to win him the fight.
Yeah.
And with Poirier's boxing, I agree. That could be problematic, especially if in plans B and C involving Demir potentially having to turn it into a wrestling match, because I think he's a little bit too much of an all-arounder for that. I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a recency bias because of what we saw Arman do to him, but tough fight.
It would be exciting to see him fight Charles Demir. Like those guys. I would love to see him fight those guys. Mm-hmm. I think Dariush would beat him. So I think Dariush and Arman might end up fighting because Benil's been saying that that's why he fought Gamrot. That's why he's like, I got to fight these guys. They want it. They're coming up. I'm not going to sit back like these other bitches and just fight each other. And he was getting the same. He doesn't want to treat, the Armands or the Demirs like he was getting treated. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I'll fight these young guys. So hopefully, we'll see. I think Benil and Arman would be a crazy. I wouldn't know how to. That's a wacky one.
I am looking for my links right now. My pages got all out of whack, but I wanted to pull up Arman Tsarukyan's comments in the post-fight presser because his call-out was good inside the cage, right directly after the fight, where he straight up said, I think that I gave Islam Makhachev his best fight. I didn't lose to Gamrot. Like, I was robbed in that fight, which I like that he's owning it and just straight up saying, like, hey, technically I'm still undefeated in the UFC.
Yeah.
I should get the shot next. Another a not great call out, but it's also like, hey, dude, yeah, of course, shoot for the stars. If anybody should, it's you.
Yeah.
But afterwards, in the post-fight presser, is when he had words for the other guys in the division, where he called out
Yeah.
the Dustin Poiriers, the Justin Gaethjes, and
Yeah.
Michael Chandlers, and straight up said, "Fight me or go away." And I thought it was like, oh, dude, that's what you need to be saying. Say it in the cage next time. Say it when they have the microphone literally right. Someone's holding it for you. But either way, good energy, and I like what he's bringing to the table there.
Yeah, and super young. So I'll stand by it. I said it before. Like at one point in his career, he's going to be top 3 pound for pound in the world. Within the next, if it's not within the next 3, for sure 5 years.
And what's crazy is the down the stretch, the fights might actually end up getting easier for him, and that's not to take away from anybody who's sitting at the top of the division. I mean, I've been very vocally critical of the top of the division for squatting on their rankings, but that doesn't mean that they're easy fights or that they're bad fighters by any means. But he's just been through such a murderer's row in trying to get to the top 10. His UFC debut was against Islam Makhachev. Mateusz Gamrot, now Damir Ismagulov. Like, this guy's getting no favors whatsoever on his way to the title. Yeah. So he's already fought a murderer's row. And I think that's why
I hope they don't just throw Fiziev at him and make those guys kill each other. I think they should really start grooming Arman and Fiziev to get them to. I hope. I don't think they will. I don't think they have the foresight. I think they're just trying to make a quota of fights and events. So I don't think they have the foresight of it, but they really need to groom Fiziev. They need to groom Arman and keep them away from each other, because they would end up hurting each other. And I think it would be an amazing fight. I would love to see it, but I think they should keep them. They should kind of like let them eat, the Chandlers and the Gaethjes, and get over on those guys right now, instead of doing this thing where they're making him fight Damir, they're making him fight Islam, they're making him fight all these guys, and it's like, that's not the way you want. I don't know. For me, I just don't think you should. You have to have a little bit of those, and he's had a ton of them. So now let's start eating the guys at the top and Highlander it and take their powers away from them and push them to the top. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. You have to build for the future of the division, for the guys that are going to be there later on in the younger crop. And like, I'll keep saying it. We're not just trying to supplant the top of the division because we don't like them or they're bad fighters or anything like that. It's just, there's been a lot of obvious cases of a bit of a merry-go-round of the same guys only fighting each other, when the UFC has been pretty like they're always about sending a guy off to the glue factory. Like when you're in your last days with the UFC, when you're clearly towards the end of your career, they're not about like propping you up as much as we've wanted to see it with different fighters, like fighters that we've loved who've gone into retirement. They want to send you out on your back, like, because they want to use whatever rub you have and get that to rub off and put somebody else over who's going to be with the company for a while. And I just think like Fiziev and Arman and those guys are the future of this division. And already we're seeing how much less time in the cage we're getting out of guys like Dustin Poirier, or I mean, let's be honest, a guy who is going to come back and is still going to be the biggest star, like a Conor McGregor, but he's probably not going to fight at lightweight anymore. So maybe not a good.
He's an outlier. He's a different. It's just a different thing altogether. He's just a different person altogether. Like a different, like an entity, more than a guy like this, And
that's definitely a guy who's not going out on his back with the UFC either. Like there's, so yeah. But yeah, it's still upward motion for him, and I kind of have faith that they'll finally let him break into the top 10 and not make him fight like every other killer in the division. But I mean, who knows? There's still guys out there. So, let's see. Drew Dober.
Yep.
Puts the
Giga Chad Chin.
He puts the finishing touches on Bobby Green in round 2 in a fight where he was facing a lot of adversity. Like Bobby Green was getting the better out of him for the duration. And he was piecing Drew Dober up. And I mean, nothing that was visually hurting Drew Dober, nothing that was like, oh, fuck, like Drew Dober can't take too many more of these. He's just a pit bull in there who's just willing to eat him.
He was clearly scoring, too. He was just clearly scoring. And if it didn't go the way it was, Dober was on his way to just a unanimous decision loss. That would have been not very good.
Yeah, a workhorse like performance put in by Bobby Green too that would have earned him a unanimous decision win, because it's a tough one where it's like it exemplifies how there are some guys in there that you have to be perfect against, you have to stay perfect against, and I want to commend Bobby Green for his head movement, because it was great. Like his head was all over the place, and I was just marveling at it. Like, yo, he's getting it done. Like I felt like it would have been the performance of his career so far for Bobby Green if he would have been able to.
He was well on his way. Yeah, no, yeah, you're 100% right on that.
Yeah, and it just goes to and I don't even know if I could say like that Bobby Green let his head movement slip, or that he got lazy with it, or it started getting sloppy. I mean, he certainly probably could have put his hands up some more, but I mean, part of the reason his hands were down was because his head movement is so good, and it's, you know, he's kind of drawing out attacks that way. That's part of his baiting and countering. So I can't be super like too critical on that. But Drew Dober just still like willing to take him and just trying to figure out the space and downloading his movement, and he finds that chin and puts the finishing touches on him. I really liked the call out of Drew Dober that he made after this fight. You know, people were asking him about the typical names, the Paddy Pimblets, and I really loved his response about that too. It's like, guys, we know I'm not getting that fight.
Yeah, that was the best way to put it. I think a lot of people have been reaching for like the like quotable thing to say and kind of missing the mark, and are just wanting that viral quote to that someone will caption or make an Instagram story out of, and they're just missing. And the way you put it was just very succinct. Like, come on, really? Like, come on, guys, we saw what that was.
Yeah, being so dismissive is so much louder.
The best way to do it.
Yeah, than trying to cut a promo and be like, well, I'm gonna be the guy who's gonna like call out Paddy Pimblett and get under his skin. It's like you and everybody else, dude. Like, get in line if you're gonna do it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really liked that. But his main call out of that wasn't a call out, but his call out of Michael Chandler, I thought was really good. And I think that if that rumored Conor McGregor Michael Chandler fight doesn't happen, I think Drew Dober might be in the runnings to get that fight, because at this point, without that Conor McGregor fight, I think you want to give Michael Chandler, if you're the UFC, you want to give Michael Chandler a potentially winnable fight, because there's only so much a guy can win and still can lose and still like win, you know, the way that he does. And I think it would be an exciting fight where he could perform as everybody expects also, because Drew Dober is a guy who will indulge him in the style of fight that he wants to put on. He's not going to be like, no, Michael Chandler, we're going to turn this into a wrestling match or something, like which I think would be to Drew Dober's disadvantage if he tried to wrestle.
Oh, in that matchup, yeah. It's just interesting. It was just interesting. Like, I'll take 3 shots of yours. I don't care. Like, I'll trade 3 for 1. But this one is fucking wild. How long that's gonna go is, I mean, it remains to be seen. And Dober's losses look really good now. Like, as we sit here now, like, his losses have aged well. Or he definitely looks a lot better.
Very good point.
Than it
Brad
was
Riddell,
a few months ago. Yeah.
Brad Riddell, Islam Makhachev, Beneil Dariush, Olivier Aubin Mercier, who's killing it over in the PFL.
That guy's a fucking animal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we've given Brad Riddell shit, but that guy's a goddamn fucking, he can fucking bang with the best of them. You know what I mean? So, yeah, to lose to Islam, Riddell, and Dariush, it's like, okay, well, what are you really gonna? A lot of guys would, you know. So, and what he's the trajectory he's been on, and the finishes. That's his 3rd finish, right, in 2022, his 3rd straight.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was doing a little bit of a prep work for our
Yeah.
year-end awards and kind of figuring out like what awards are we going to do. And one thing that I found easy is instead of, because if you just go like, okay, well, let's do best knockouts or best win streaks of
Mm.
whatever of 2022, then you really have to be like, well, where do you even begin? Like, where do you? So I thought, well, like, what if we
There's
just?
been some crazy ones.
There's
Yeah.
been a lot, yeah. So I thought, well, what if we just do like biggest rising stars per division or something? That way, you can go through, pull up the
Yeah.
rankings, and then kind of go there. And Drew Dober right now, let me pull up my notes. It's hard for lightweight because there's a lot of typical names that I thought we would, I would be throwing out there. We just finished ball washing Arman Sarukian, but he's got that loss to Gamrot. Even though I thought Arman won that fight, I mean, I was rooting for Gamrot, and but it's still a loss at the end of the day. But right now, Drew
Yeah.
Dober's 3-fight win streak of Terrence McKinney, Bobby Green, Rafael Alves is looking pretty
Yeah.
good. It might be
And
up
his
there.
losses are very good. Yeah. So it's like, what are you gonna, or if as good as a loss can be, I guess.
Yeah. And it's also a good turnaround year for him also, because he went 0-2 in 2021, and he turned it around and answered 2022 with 3-fight winning
Yep.
streak. So very big
Amazing.
for him. So yeah, he might get that nod for me. Obviously, Islam Makhachev had a tremendous year at lightweight, but he's already at the top, so he can't be a rising star anymore. And I didn't want to say prospects either because Drew Dober's not one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a
Like,
goddamn vet.
yeah,
Yeah.
this isn't new for him. So
He even has that name. Like if every event that comes up, you read the names and then you'll get like Nasrat Hakparast, or you'll get names like that where like I can't see him in my head,
mhm.
but I know his name, and when I see him fight, I'll know who he is. Drew Dober is that person too, but he's transcending that. He's not just a guy that a comfortable guy in the middle of a card. He's ascending to the higher levels of the card now. So I would say he's pretty close to even, if not a co-main, he could even main it with as he rises up, and it could even main event a fight night and be maybe even a showcase fight in a pay-per-view. So
Can't argue with that. Another fight that caught my eye, or a guy who I was kind of like tuned into to see how he was going to do. Mikhail, I think it's Michal Olegchaychek, the Polish guy,
yeah,
versus Cody
yeah,
Brundage. That
yep,
guy was pretty scary. I was going through and putting in my verdict picks, and this is a guy who I wasn't very familiar with him going into this card, but I saw that there was a huge multiplier on him to win by submission. And I saw that he had 1 or 2 submission wins on his record, and I like to trace points for unlikely outcomes on verdicts, just like you would chase a prop bet.
sure,
And so I'm like, okay, well, let's see. Well, maybe there's if I see a guy has so many finishes, then I think like, oh, he might be due for a submission. So I pull up his highlights, and it's just violence, just nonstop. If you have him on the ground,
yeah,
if you have him on his ground,
yeah,
his mission is to get off the ground or to sweep you and just finish you. And that's what he did against Cody Brundage. He was having a little bit of trouble. Brundage went to the wrestling early and was able to hold Ola Chachik down, and he wasn't really doing much work off the bottom, but he hit a sweep towards the end of the. Oh no, it was 3:16, so not in the middle of the round. And it's just as soon as he got on top, the shots, they didn't even like visually, aesthetically, they didn't even look like anything like super special in terms of ground and pound, or like how we've
right,
seen. We've been watching alpha athletes, just torque their body in ways to throw meaningful ground and pound for years now. But
yeah,
this guy's got something else in his fists that just immediately made Cody Brundage melt in a round that he had
yes,
been winning like
right,
decisively up until there, and he was just, nope, that's it, get this guy off of me. So
yeah. It's that freak aspect of it that we've seen, where it kind of like defies the laws of like, I don't know if is it physics or whatever it is. Like he shouldn't be doing that type of damage from that angle, but he is. Like
yes,
why? And you're exactly right. And he what it was a striking turnaround too. It was like a complete 180 from the way that round was going, and then it just got insanely bad for Brundage Like that is so that is such a microcosm for the UFC is to, especially when they match make it the right way, when it's not like a Paddy Pimblett fight where
Mm.
he's fighting someone who you can obviously tell the gap is so wide between them,
Yeah.
or that you can tell they're just trying to build this guy's record, where it's a really well, because they can do really well with matchups too, to make it fucking entertaining, or to maybe just to for them to see who's who within the promotion. And I think that was a good example of shit. That shit can get bad real quick, not just in a fight in a fight like in the streets or anywhere, but in the fucking cage. Like I could not fucking get that out of my head. You're right, dude. The way he melted was crazy.
And Cody Brundage, not a guy who is easy to put away. I mean, he's relatively short
Right.
career, 8-3 professional, but also including 6 amateur fights, and only been finished in 2 of those fights. In previous, well, one of those being Mikhail Alekchechek, with one of them coming to William Knight in 2020. So that's impressive. And a guy in the middleweight division, who a division I'm classically not fond of. I'm excited for him moving forward. The middleweight division is finally rounding out with names like Roman Dolidze and Dricus Duplessis and Muniz, and now this guy. I mean, we'll see. The jury's still out on him. His record 18-5, and how busy has he been? He fought 3 times in 2022. Came up short via decision to Dustin Jacoby, retired Sam Alvey, and then now he got this just really, really violent win over Cody Brundage. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one, man. I really liked that. And that one, what was the guy? It was the Russian dude that fought Brian Battle. Looked fucking good too. Like, keep an eye on that dude. The Renat something. Let me see if I can look this up. Right, Renat Fakhretdinov.
I didn't see
That guy
that one,
fucking
but I'm looking.
yeah.
I'm looking for his name right now. Oh, I almost forgot. Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Saidjakub Kakhramonov.
The ninja choke was dope.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a sick one. That was another turn of events that was like shit.
Mhm.
And it
Saeed,
was funny because Saeed had been saying like people are ducking me, people are ducking me, people are ducking me. I was like, I don't know. And I think he's not a Nurmagomedov, like
mm-mm.
he's kind of like a family friend, or he gets like the rub
Not
because they're
even.
from the same area.
Not yeah, same, but not even in the same team though. So same last name
Yeah.
as Khabib, obviously from the same place, but
I think he's managed by the same. I think they're with Ali as well.
I see.
And they're managed that way. Yeah. But yeah, that ninja choke was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, and it looked like Saeed Jacob really he was trying to. I think he had an anaconda choke like locked
Right.
in round 1 and just was not letting it go for anything. You might have blew his arms out a little bit there, but even then the fight went on and ended in. Dude, I'm getting so out of sorts with my pages. I don't remember. Was that one a decision? No, it was a submission. But was it a second
Yeah,
or
he
third
submitted
round?
it.
Third round submission.
I thought it was like right toward the end. I think it was the third round, but I could be wrong.
Round 2, 350.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair
Yeah. Super competitive fight makes bantamweight that much more exciting. And I was going through the bantamweight rankings too to kind of do that like rising star too. And I mean, call it potential recency bias, but Saeed Nurmagomedov is one of the guys that I'm considering giving the nod to there because he's had an impressive 2022 as well, going 3-0 against Cody Stamann, Douglas Silva de Andrade, and Saidjakub Kakhramonov, which I think was probably
Yeah.
the most statement making fight of the 3. All right, man. Well, what's
Yeah.
new in the news of mixed martial arts that you want to touch on before we sign off or before we start seeing that 30-minute timer
Yeah.
pop up on Zoom again?
That weird shit with Paulo Costa's kind of like, who do you believe with that one? The fact that Paulo Costa hasn't beaten anyone in the UFC now, you kind of, I don't have any fucking love lost for him. I like the guy, I like his fights, but you haven't beat anybody. There's no one that has a UFC contract that you've beat. So Why should you get paid
That's a very,
this
very
insane
good
amount?
point. Luke Rockhold,
Why do
Yoel
you get to
Romero,
pull? Yeah.
Uriah
Why
Hall,
do you
Johnny
get to pull
Hendricks.
out of a Whitaker fight?
It's a weird kind of power move that I think he's trying to do, and he certainly has a growing fan base that kind of makes me understand why he thinks he can, pull these types of moves. And it puts us in a weird position as people who love to never side with the UFC brass on things, but also you look at Paulo's angle and you got to think like, Paulo, you know how much you get paid. I mean, you have a contract for a reason.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy with that pay, you need to. I don't know. I believe that they booked that fight without confirming with him though. It seems to have happened so many times already with other fighters that like I get that part where I believe they're like, yeah, Paulo, you're gonna fight. It's gonna be on this day.
I think they didn't expect him to. I think they blackmail fighters, or I don't know if blackmail is the word, but they kind of like paint them into that corner to where like, well, he pulled out, he's a pussy.
Right.
And it's like, nah, dude, I didn't agree to. You just put it in the news. I didn't agree. I've seen, you're right. We have seen that. And I think it puts the fighters in a negative light. And the fact that he has been more outspoken, especially in social media and in interviews. And I think, and he put it right back in their face because like the typical UFC analyst that kind of like, they kind of like carry water for the UFC, or they simp out for the UFC, where they're like, well, that's messed up for Costa to do this because Whitaker has to pay out of pocket to, he pays out because he puts all the costs up front. He starts with his diet, with his trainers, with his gym time, with his sparring partners. And now all that money's gone. He can't recoup that, and the UFC isn't going to recoup it. So that's all out of Whitaker's pocket. Shame on Paulo Costa for that. Yes. And Costa's like, I didn't do any of that. I didn't book it at all.
Yeah.
So, and that was one thing I did notice was,
because that in that scenario, who lied to Robert Whitaker? If there wasn't a fight that was booked, if Paulo Costa never signed anywhere, then that's on the UFC for gaslighting Whitaker into getting ready for a fight that wasn't confirmed. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, no. That you're making the point that I was just about to make. Like who is it that? And then what's going to happen is, hopefully, just because that card look with, I think Kai Kara France had to pull out today with the injury. So that card's looking shittier and shittier. So Costa's guy getting more cards in his deck now, to where it's looking like they might end up having to cave to him. But I doubt that they will.
Yeah, and to go back to the point you made about Jared Cannonier, about shoot for the moon, because I mean now that card, good. You mentioned Kai Kara France having to pull out, like that does also kind of like stack the deck more in his favor a little bit. But if Paulo Costa decides to play ball, they'll make that fight. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think if one more or two more things happen like that, to where, but it's just like we've seen the UFC be more than happy to kind of go ahead, like with this last pay-per-view with Mitchell and Topuria and those guys. So that pay-per-view just fucking crumbled, and you really didn't see them do anything to make it, out of fucking presentable. It's just, we and that I think it was you that sent me that link to where they're talking about the Kraus problem, like the gambling problem. And the guy was breaking down how the parent company, they really don't care. It's you have to put on 44 or 45 events within this time period, or we don't pay you. So the UFC really doesn't give a fuck. They're just like, okay, well, we'll just put who's in within the top 11, top 12 that has to fucking, that kind of has a name. We can put them on a poster, and we'll fill our quota for fights that week. So who cares?
Yeah, it's weird, but also like makes all the sense in the world that like the UFC is not in the pay-per-view business anymore. They are. Oh no. They have a bottom line already that they get from the ESPN deal, plus the the Venom fightwear thing, the Rock's shoes, and all that stuff. It's all a fixed amount that they're getting, and their focus is to just bring in as much lower level cheap talent to fill cards that you can get off the contender series, cut or put guys who make a lot more money than they're like promotionally worth anymore because either they're older fighters or they're just they're better than they are popular. I don't even remember the point I was making, but
no, it's just you can tell they're watering down their product.
Yes,
and this card's falling apart with Kai Kara-France getting hurt. I think they haven't put like Della Magdalena on the card yet, to what I understand, or got some of those homegrown Australian guys to fill it out. So it's looking pretty shitty. And I was trying to make that a point. Well, that card's going to look shitty. Why don't they should just give Costa what they want, but they don't give a fuck. They'll put Rosas Jr. or someone on there, someone with just a little bit of fucking rub and but he's not even Australian. Sorry. What do you want me to tell you?
I'm looking for the card right now. The Perth card. Which do you know what the date of that's supposed to be?
Isn't it in February 2nd or something like that?
Is it a pay-per-view? Is it the one where
February 4th?
Islam and Volkanovski are fighting?
Yeah, I believe so, right? February 4th or February 14th. I think, is it Super Bowl week?
I'm seeing that for that one is February 284. That's going to be that's in Perth, yeah. 284. So far it's Islam versus Volkanovski, Yair versus Josh Emmett, Tyson Pedro versus Mingyang Zhang.
Okay.
I bet good main card, but after that it does kind of fall off a cliff though. And you did mention some names that they should probably definitely seek out, like Jack Della Maddalena. That'd be a tremendous add to the card. I think if Carlos forgetting his first name, if Ulberg, the light heavyweight, is ready to go.
It's Carlos Ulberg, yeah.
Yeah, Carlos Ulberg. I think that would be a great addition, especially now that we've lost Kai Kara-France on that card.
Blood Diamond, sign him back up. I think they dropped him, right?
Did they? I was not aware. You know what? I need to, since I got a new phone, I need to go back and turn on my Twitter notifications because now I'm not seeing the UFC roster watch.
The fighter, the roster watch. Or Duran Nguyen, did you see that? How that happened? Like they,
the way he worded it, like when he got injured on their property, but then I'm hearing that he fell ill or something like that. He was sick, so I don't know how that necessarily works out. Like.
Didn't he pass out and fell downstairs or something?
That's what I'm thinking. So it's like, how does that work out when somebody?
He was trying to pull a slipping Jimmy.
Not that he's trying to pull a slipping Jimmy. Like I believe he passed out, but like, how does it work? Like, how do you make stairs safe for someone who's passing out? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, like how you can really put it on somebody because it's like, it's going to be he could have passed out behind the wheel of his car on the way home, and it would have been even more dangerous.
Same thing, yeah.
That's a tough one though. Like,
that's a good point. He's almost luckier that it was just him and not, getting onto an on ramp or something.
Hope he's okay though, and I'm not here to defend the UFC in that regard either. Get your money if you can and make it right. They could certainly afford to make it right.
Exactly.
Well, boss.
What speaking of the PI though, fucking Jake Shields beat the shit out of a guy.
He beat. I'm not familiar with Mike Jackson, so I had to look him up, and he's 1-2, and he fought CM Punk. And I'm just like, this is the news right now. A retired UFC fighter fights a guy who's somehow still on the roster, even though he was clearly just brought in to fight CM Punk.
Right.
Tough. Yeah, he called him a Nazi, and it if anything, that only makes it even more tempting to call Jake Shields a Nazi on Instagram. Yeah. That's where my brain goes. I get to meet Jake Shields. All I have to do is call him a Nazi and give him my location. I want to see if we can get the whole Rat Pack or Scrap Pack to show up.
Fuck, dude.
No.
Jake Shields could still swing, though.
Maybe. He said he was slapping the guy. He's definitely not. If this Mike Jackson guy wants to press charges, Jake Shields legally is
He's just
just
going. He's
making
just
all the
telling it
wrong
the
moves.
whole fucking thing. Yeah.
Yeah, online, straight up, like, yeah, he called me a Nazi online, and I told him that there will be consequences when I see him in person. And I saw him, and I took him down and slapped him up. And it's like, yeah, guy, that's gonna get you
Yeah.
caught up. This guy seems like a
And
bit of
then
a
he said, "Yeah,
twerp.
I didn't punch him." And I was like, "Okay, good." Because that's what you do to men. I slapped him because he's a bitch. That's what you do to bitches. It's like, oh no. Oh shit.
Mac Jackson's lawyers looking at that statement right now and being like, "Oh, I think we can get this put down as a
Yeah.
hate crime now because of that
Right, right.
language." So, no, man, what a
Exactly.
mess. It kind of makes me wonder if the PI is going to do anything about that. But I mean, I think it's going to come down to Mike Jackson. I don't think if the PI looks at it and separates them, and everybody says like, okay, well, I just don't know, like, what do you even do to slap Jake Shields on the wrist, because he's probably not even at the PI. Like, what are you going to ban him from a place that he's never at anyways? I just,
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a stupid situation, really.
It gave us two instances of MMA fighters attacking each other in public this year, which is surprising.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be rare if we even get one of those per year, like we did earlier this year with Masvidal and Colby. But now
And they
this
had
on
the
a much
video
more
came out, right?
insignificant level. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. The video of Masvidal getting booked or whatever. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's pretty much. Or Bryce Mitchell thought about retiring or is thinking about retiring, which I
That
don't. I mean, that would suck.
that's a whole nother feather in Ilya Tapuria's head. And dude, look at me finding a way to make it about Ilya and ball washing him. But
Yeah.
I kind of believe, I think I said it a little bit in our recap episode. I kind of believe he might have been sick. So if we rewatched that
Yeah.
fight, and like it just wasn't him. And I'll give Bryce credit for that too. But now that he's talking about potentially just retiring, it makes me wonder if maybe he wasn't sick, if he really just kind of hit that wall and decided he doesn't want to do this anymore. But
Yeah. I don't know, but man, what Taporia do? It's like that. It's just one of those things where it's like you didn't realize that you had that effect on people,
hmm.
and especially like because by all accounts, Bryce Mitchell looked like a fucking Marine. You know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
strong ass motherfucker, and he got broke. So goddamn.
Big fight booked in the women's flyweight division. I don't know if you saw this. Tyler Santos had been calling out Valentina Shevchenko for a rematch pretty heavily, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were about to give it to her, but they just booked her against the rising Erin Blanchfield earlier today.
Oh wow, you would catch that. Wow, I was just looking at Blanchfield's Instagram earlier too. For yes, I didn't see that. So
yeah, so number 3 ranked Tyler Santos, who gave Valentina Shevchenko.
that's a banger of a fight.
It's a good fight. Yeah, she gave Valentina her toughest fight, her toughest flyweight championship fight.
Exactly.
So far. It was a split decision loss, I believe, to Valentina, which was also kind of like impressive. It was in a couple other girls. The ball was in a couple other girls' courts. Alexa Grasso kind of passed on it. She didn't have the most amazing performance a little earlier this year, and then in her post-fight, she didn't really call it the champ. Mannon's injured, and now Erin Blanchfield, who's just entering the top 10, she gets called up in what is pretty clearly going to be a title eliminator fight. So I think it's pretty telling about the fact of how formulaic they can be, because I think they recognized with Molly McCann that Molly's at her ceiling. You know what I mean? She's that she's more popular than she is good.
They definitely know what they have now.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if we can realistically expect another performance like this out of McCann. They sacrificed her to Erin Blanchfield in Erin's backyard, and it's pretty ruthless, man. But I think it's an interesting move. I would say I would have preferred if they taken their time with her a little bit more. But when the other girls at the top are gonna pass on that opportunity, then I think it's also beneficial to get in there and just get your time with the champ. In other divisions, it might not be as practical because you lose or you lose badly, and you might not ever get there again. But at women's flyweight, Erin Blanchfield, with her skills, you can lose to Valentina Shevchenko and still look good in a loss, and you will get back there. And I think what better way to prepare for the champion than to actually fight the champion. even if you have to get that loss, and like you get to go into a rematch with her with potentially 5 rounds of experience to work with, knowing what Valentina Shevchenko feels like, that speed, and so
it's not going to be the Cannonier type situation to where like, that's your only shot. Thanks for coming out.
Exactly.
Your career's done.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, we got our timer reminder back again. We are at 1 minute 14 seconds, so we'll go ahead and let Zoom decide for us that this episode is drawing to a close. I just want to say, Brandon, thanks for being there with me for the whole year, dude, for jumping on and like being down to do this podcast with me, because I've done some MMA podcasting way back in the day, but it was just nothing anyone would ever want to hear. And I've always kind of wanted to do it again, and I kind of like put it off and was always afraid of the idea of having to do it by myself. And so I'm really, really happy that you got on board to help facilitate this. Man,
I love it. The exact same back to you, dude. This shit is fun as hell. I love this shit.
Yeah, man.
It puts a whole new perspective on it on my Saturdays too.
That's awesome. Well, man, upwards and onwards to a great 2023 and more talking about fights. Thanks for being with me again. I'll say good night, man. See ya.
Hey, good night, man. Merry Christmas.